The transfer window is upon us. So, of course, we're talking about all sorts of weird and wacky transfers that are going on. And also, quite frankly, there's not a whole lot else happening in the world of football besides the early rounds of qualifying in European competitions, which, don't get me wrong, I love and we're going to fucking talk about. But there's only so many of those matches. And there is a very good reminder that's just come across our desk. That everything that you hear during transfer negotiations, transfer processes, a month later, you'll actually know what happened. While it's all going on, you have to assume, you have to work under the assumption that you don't have the full picture. You really do. And the reminder for that is the transfer of David Hancko. I know I'm saying it wrong, but honestly, I've only ever read the name in Football Manager and otherwise, and I've never really had to say it out loud before. He is a Slovakian player for Feyenoord, or at least he was until this past season. David Hancko was a good player for Feyenoord. And of course, if you remember, Feyenoord made it to the Champions League. Let me see if I can find it. The Champions... Where am I? What the hell am I looking at here? They made it to the Champions League round of 16, right? This is a very relevant, very good team. They ended up losing to Inter, who obviously made the final. They lost to them 4-1 on aggregate. But I'm pretty sure in the previous round, did they knock off? They knocked off somebody important. I think they knocked off Milan. Yeah, they did, didn't they? They absolutely did. They knocked off AC Milan. They just lost to the other one. So the farthest that Feyenoord has gone in the Champions League in a long time, decades even. And as a result, David Hancko, he was, I'm going to commit to one. David Hancko, he was a big hot topic in the transfer window. And at some point, the shoe drops, right? The Fabrizio Romano-sized shoe drops. Specifically right here on this Yahoo Sports article. David Hancko to Al-Nassr, here we go. Now, I guess you could argue he didn't officially get a here we go because if you actually look at the tweet, it's been edited. Okay. This article found an initial typo in the here we go, so maybe that's the reason this didn't end up happening. The deal was in place, 33 million euros, nearly $40 million. It's going to be the biggest sale in the history of Feyenoord to send David Hancko to Al-Nassr. He was, he's going to get the giant paycheck going to play in Saudi Arabia as well. That means the club's happy, the player's happy, contract until 2028. It was also, just random side note, going to be the biggest transfer of a Slovakian player in the history of football. Milan Skriniar moving to, Inter from Sampdoria in 2017. That was the biggest transfer in Slovakian footballing history. Now, you're looking at David Hancko. Nice. The only problem is, once he arrives at Al-Nassr, things go haywire. It's not actually Al-Nassr, okay? He arrived in Austria. This is for the team's training camp. So Al-Nassr currently on like a European tour as part of their, I guess it would be their preseason training camp. And he lands there, and at that point when he lands, they told him, and this is from the Flash Score article here, that they do not count on their client and the deal is off. According to various articles and reports on what happened, basically David Hancko lands in Austria, gets off the plane, goes and is assuming he's going to be training with the team and this and that, and then when he arrives, he's not allowed to train with the team, and they basically just give him a hotel room and he stays in there. And they're saying that the transfer is off and that it's not going to happen. And at the point that this happens, you get an outcry. Understandably. I mean, what would you think? If this is all of the information you've been provided, we've got our natural, boogeyman, right? The scary Saudi teams that are buying everybody, right? The culturally different, morally questionable, right? This kind of evil empire in the view of a lot of football fans that's come in to try and, do this or that. And so, of course, they're treating this player wrongly. Of course, they would sign this guy. Right, I've made a video about one of those Saudi teams that bought a player from the Welsh side, the New Saints. Right, the first big transfer out of the Welsh league ever, but then they never even paid for the guy. He just went over to Saudi Arabia, and they still haven't paid for him. right? So there are other, stories of woe and tales of struggle when interacting with these Saudi teams. And this is just another one that's going to add to the list. They sign a player, give him a contract, and all of a sudden he lands at the training camp, and they're telling him he's not going to be a part of the training camp. They're locking him in a hotel room, they're locking him out of training, and they're going to put him on a plane and send him back to Feyenoord, even though Fabrizio said, "Here we go." Right? It's an easy scapegoat. It's an easily digestible, understandable story if you know the world of football as it is today. The only problem is that is not what happened. It turns out Al-Nassr actually handled this very, very kindly, in my estimation, based off what I can see. Because as David Hancko was going to Al-Nassr, and as everything had been kind of agreed with, except for the very final signatures, Atletico Madrid reached out. And it turns out David Hancko really wanted to play for Atletico Madrid. And in this process, I'm assuming while David's on the plane, Al-Nassr catches wind of this. Right? The offer's a little lower, so I'm sure Feyenoord's not super pleased with the way all of this went down, but David Hancko apparently very quickly is making it clear he only wants to go to Atletico Madrid. He doesn't want to go to Al-Nassr. But if we get to the point where Fabrizio Romano is here we goated, there is an agreement on the table. And I fully believe that if you reach that point, Al-Nassr could have tried to force this through to hang on to David Hancko. They could have made a stink about it, but instead, after hearing this, they basically go, "He didn't want to be here, we don't want him." And you know what? I actually respect the hell out of that. I respect the hell out of the way Al-Nassr handled this more than I respect the way David Hancko handled this, I believe, based off what I know. Again, we're not a full month out, so more information could come out about this. Who knows exactly how it went down? But even in this article, you understand that initially the reports that he was just being locked out at Al-Nassr and they didn't want to do the deal anymore sounded nefarious were wrong. Because at the same time, my daughter, David's sister, asked David in our family group if the rumors about Atletico were true. David replied that they were, and that's how we found out that something was going on again after they thought that the first transfer was, after they thought that the first transfer was the only thing that was going down. How about this? David Hancko said this: "The offer from Saudi Arabia was there. The story ended according to my wish, which was to play here, Atletico Madrid. As soon as Atletico Madrid came forward with the deal, I wanted to come here. We wanted to come to Madrid." So now David Hancko is going to play in La Liga with one of, I would say, the 20 biggest clubs in the world, in Atletico Madrid, and he seems to be very happy about it. Al-Nassr's been left a little bit out in the cold, and depending on what article you read, the timeline is still a little blurry. But when you have David Hancko saying stuff like that, and that he clearly wanted to go to Atletico Madrid, I believe it was David Hancko that ended up pulling the lever to make this happen. And that the obvious bad guy in Al-Nassr ended up not being the bad guy at all. So what's the life lesson? What's the nursery rhyme takeaway that we can have from this? Well, I'll give it to you. As we go through these processes, whether it be Isak, whether it be Gilchrist, whether it be, whatever, just know that we are probably not getting even half of the actual information that is being exchanged and half of the actual story to form our full opinions. Because, there are a lot of different ways this stuff can go down. And it is not always the most obvious way, where the big, scary bad guy, the normal big, scary bad guy, is the one responsible for the bad stuff here. In fact, it was Atletico Madrid in the 11th hour, and then the player, it seems like, reneging on his agreement to go to Al-Nassr in the first place. It's complex. People are complex. That's why I stay in this room.